I'm Zoreen from GameSpot Australia, and I'm talking to Artosis and Tasteless today from the StarCraft II scene, and we're going to be asking them a couple of questions. How do you explain what you do to your family and friends who don't quite understand what eSports is?
It's kind of funny because I have certain family members that totally get what I do, and I have certain family members where I just tell them I do video game TV shows because that's easy and it takes less time for them to try to digest it. But at this point in time, I've been doing this for about 7 years. So at this point in time, it's pretty established. Everybody kind of gets what I'm doing is making money and is respectable. So they get it.
Being American, the most famous sports broadcaster would be like John Madden. So I basically explain to my family, the ones that don't really get video games. My brothers get it, but to them, I say something like, "Oh, I'm John Madden." They're like, "Yeah." I say, "I'm kind of like that, but for video games." And they pretty much get it after that. They're always like surprised and skeptical and kind of asking like, "Really? Like this is on? People watch this?" Yeah, well, a lot of people, but that's how I do it.
What was their initial reaction to when you first started off being involved with eSports?
Well, I dropped out of college after being there for 4.5 years. I was supposed to be going to law school or getting a PhD in philosophy, so they were a little bit alarmed by that because I was doing well in school, and I was kind of going down that very standard, safe road. But I quit all that to go to Korea, so I think there was some initial alarm, and then sort of thinking I was going through maybe some kind of a life crisis or something, and then eventually I'd come back and finish up school. But now where they see, that I'm making a lot of money and, I'm getting to see parts of the world. I've been able to travel to more countries than anybody in my entire, family, both sides. So I think now they're very happy for me.
When I first started really getting into being a pro gamer in America and stuff like that, there was a lot of concern from my family. They thought I was addicted to video games. They were seeing these news reports on game addiction and stuff, because that was becoming an issue at the time. But I was trying to show them, no, this is a very skill-based game. I'm one of the best. Please trust me. They were really not supportive at first about it. It took until I finally moved to Korea and started pulling in a regular paycheck for them to really get it and understand what was going on.
StarCraft II has gained a lot of traction in esports in comparison to Brood War. What do you think has contributed to this?
I feel like it has so much to do with the better bandwidth and the better computers people have. The fact that we can actually live stream things at this point, as opposed to before. In StarCraft I, we didn't really have the technology all that well. If you stream something live, it was very difficult to do. It took immense resources. Nowadays, anyone can get on. They can stream some of the games. They can throw stuff up on YouTube, and it's all HD, really high quality, and anyone around the world can watch it. And I feel like StarCraft II is the right time and place for those things, in addition to being basically the best game ever.
Brood War is now over 10 years old. How much life do you think it's got left as an esport?
Well, it just died. Because we were just attending the last televised Brood War event in Korea. It was a week ago or something?
Yeah.
About a week ago. So we literally just saw it die, which is actually, it's kind of a fascinating thing because, it had such a big backing and a big following that to actually see a sport die, if you were to be at something like that, and a tennis game, and say, well, this is going to be the last tennis game ever played. It's kind of a crazy thought, right? It's going to, basically probably go away forever. It's an antique now. So since we've just now seen that, I don't foresee any other uprising from Brood War. I don't see it happening.
How do you think Heart of the Swarm will change the dynamics of the scene?
Well, I think with Heart of the Swarm coming out, what that does is there's already some, how we understand StarCraft II right now cementing. We're starting to see real patterns with how people play, and when the game's starting to become figured out. Obviously, there's a lot more to it that we still don't know. But what happens when you get a game like Heart of the Swarm is you add a new piece, a few new pieces to a chess game, for instance. So let's say that there weren't knights and bishops before in chess. So what that does is now we have all these new tools that we can use to try different strategies and do new stuff. So that should probably draw more attention, and it'll give new cool strategies, which will then probably increase viewership and get people more excited.
Brood War, which was the most successful esport before StarCraft II, especially in Korea, that was actually a sequel to StarCraft 1, just as Heart of the Swarm is a sequel to StarCraft II, Wings of Liberty. And if you look at it nowadays, after seeing professional Brood War develop, you look at StarCraft 1, you say that was actually an incomplete game. The game actually would not have made it without Brood War. Brood War is what polished it off and made it a perfect game. So for StarCraft 2, even though we can't tell quite yet because it's still very young, Wings of Liberty might not be like a perfect game for esports. It might have some areas where it just doesn't quite work out. So Heart of the Swarm, I feel like, is that Brood War where it's like, all right, we're going to polish this game a little bit more, give you a little bit more to work with, and really make the perfect game for the long haul.
Why do you think Australian players perform the way they do, like on the international level at the moment?
One big one is the latency. Down here, the internet's further away from everyone to actually connect to good players in their areas. It's very difficult, and they're going to have a leg up on you. It's going to make your practice harder. It's going to demotivate you in some ways as well. Another thing to take into consideration is, let's say that an Australian player flies to another event. All the things in similar time zones have the best players in the world, the Koreans, in them. And if you go to like a completely different time zone, it takes you forever to get there from Australia, and you're going to be jet lagged. So that's going to make it really hard on you as well. It's not that the players don't have the talent or the skill. It's just there's a few things just about where Australia on the globe is located, I think, that is really making that extra bit of hardness for them.
What's interesting about Australia is you have a few individuals like Legionnaire or Moonglade who kind of come out of the woodwork and suddenly put Australia on the map. But what's interesting now is that it seems, from what I've been able to watch, whether it's over a stream or read an eSports news article or even just stand behind one of these guys and see them play, there's actually a lot of very good players, which historically is pretty different from what the way that I think most people viewed Australia as an esport. So what's exciting now is that we actually have a big group of good players. So I think with StarCraft II coming out, and Australia obviously being next to all these other Asian countries, so there's this big influence of tolerance of gaming. I think we're going to see a big increase in the number of major players at Australia or international tournaments from Australia. So I think that's probably why we've seen such a an increase in the overall skill. And I think since this tournament or after this tournament, probably a lot more eyeballs on Australian esports.
So if you weren't involved with eSports or shoutcasting, what else could you imagine yourself doing at this point in time?
I would say before I was doing StarCraft II, I'd probably see myself being a professor at a university or maybe studying law. But I think now, if I wasn't doing eSports casting, I would be really interested in just other forms of television. I really enjoy this line of work. So something like that. Maybe something else involving gaming as well, but I really like the broadcasting aspect of my job, so probably something like that.
Before StarCraft really became my number one passion, I really followed it as my career. I wanted to be actually a glaciologist studying glaciers. I know it's like far out there. It's way different than esports, but yeah, that's what I would have been doing if it wasn't for this. At this point, like let's say that esports ended, I'm not really sure what I would do. I think I would stay in the gaming industry in some capacity, but I mean, I guess those were my two big passions to begin with.
Who wins more in StarCraft II?
we actually hardly play each other, to be totally honest. We're mostly grinding on the ladder trying to figure out the metagame, but I would say Dan's in better shape than me.
Dan, can you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I would play a bit more StarCraft than him, but it would, in the games that we do play together, like Street Fighter, he beats me a bit more, so it balances out.